2, not a bad ratio, or up 10, down 5. And I think as we have talked about, as we go through the queue and settle with these countries who are going to bring us their best offers, we will end up in a place of great certainty over the next 90 days on tariffs. We had very good inflation numbers today. Oil's down. We had a successful bond market, so I don't see anything unusual today.
How close are you to the first country coming to actually make a deal with the United States over tariffs? Is it days, months?
Well, I think it's very close, but we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to. I could do this all in one day. I could just say, here's what we'll do. And I was saying to the
Mr. President, if you aren't able to reach the deals that you want to see at the end of the 90 days, will you put those higher tariffs in place, or will you extend
Well, that's what would happen. I mean, if we can't make the deal that we want to make, or we have to make, or that's good for both parties, it's got to be good for both parties.
You wouldn't,
and then we go back to where we were.
You go back to the numbers that you announced last week.
I think so.
You wouldn't extend the pause?
Yeah.
That was President Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent talking yesterday about the impact of the administration's trade war on the economy. Earlier this morning, China raised tariffs to 125%, which are going to go into effect tomorrow. That comes after the White House confirmed yesterday's tariffs on Chinese imports are at 145%. These are just crazy numbers. That news fueled another steep drop on Wall Street, erasing major gains from Wednesday's historic average. This is reminding me a bit of what the market was doing at times during COVID, up, down, up, down. This morning, I was just checking across the numbers, the Nikkei down about 3%. But it had gone up nine percentage points the day before. Europe actually right now is holding steady, down just a little bit. But the S&P futures are up. The Dow Jones futures up half a percentage point. The dollar up about 1.5. So we will see. Again, during COVID, you had ups and downs as everybody was trying to read the market, what it meant. I wonder if we're going to go into that sort of phase right now where the market's desperately trying to find the bottom so people can get back in and try to make more money. It's but if you talk to people on Wall Street and across the country, they will tell you it's dangerous out there, including our next guest, former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst, Steve Rattner. Steve, just looking at the, I am, as you know, I am a liberal arts guy that went to the University of Alabama. I took Econ 101 and, as I've said several times, spent the entire semester reading Sports Illustrated in the back row. So I'm not a guy that is prone to reading the futures. But I am. I have this past week, like a lot of people. Right now, not a great night in Asia, but not catastrophic. Europe's holding steady, and the Dow the futures seem to be up a little bit, despite this massive retaliation from the Chinese. What's your take on where we are in the markets? And should we, again, I know you're not predicting, but as far as the economy goes, a lot of people talking about recession, a lot of people talking about a possible future collapse in the markets. What are you looking at? What are you hearing?
Definitely not predicting the markets, certainly not on a day-to-day basis. But let's step back from all the volatility in markets and talk about where we are, and then we can talk about where we might be going. Where we are in the markets is a much worse place than where we started. For all the ups and the downs and whatever, the market is well below where it was before the president decided to embark on this craziness. The dollar is much weaker. Our Treasury yields have gone up significantly, which raises the cost of borrowing for the government and exacerbates the deficit problem that you well know we already had. So nothing good has happened out of all this, and a lot of bad stuff has happened out of all this. I have no idea where the president is going. Nobody does. He probably honestly has no idea where he's going on this. The tariff barriers, or the tariffs, the so-called tariffs that all these other countries have, most of them are actually quite low. The issue is what we call non-tariff barriers, where the countries let our goods in on an equal footing with their own goods, or they come up with phony kind of restrictions about what kind of apples can come in the country, or wheat, or this or that. So it's a complicated situation. You'll remember in the first term, he went to tariff war against Canada and Mexico, ultimately negotiated the USMCA, which I don't think changed a heck of a lot, and backed off. And so that may be what happens here with most of the countries. We have to come back to China. But with most of the countries, that may be a way he walks back in off this ledge he's put himself on. This is a total unforced error. This is the worst economic policy making I've seen in 50 years of hanging around economic policy. My border colleague could do a better job of managing this economy than this administration has done so far. What you're hearing from the Treasury Secretary, from others, is honestly just kind of gobbledygook. It makes no sense. Nobody would have said that this is the road we should go down. And where we go from here, who knows? As I said, my guess is he finds a way to crawl in off the ledge with most of these countries. The question is China. Those tariffs, as you pointed out, are massive now. China is one of our 3 biggest trading partners. You're not going to be able to buy that new iPhone at any reasonable cost very shortly if all this sort of stuff stays in effect. And let me make one last point, Joe. I just came back from 4 days in Europe. I was in London, I was in Germany, I was in Sweden, and it was a trip really not planned around the tariffs. It was planned a long time ago around whether the Europeans were actually getting their defense together and were going to start spending money on defense, another subject that we could talk about. But obviously this all came up everywhere. The loss of confidence in America is extraordinary. They do not view us as not a reliable ally, not even a predictable ally. And they are really scared. They are going to try to get their act together. Europe is a complicated place. But we have done, Trump has done incredible damage to the American brand in all these countries, and total loss of confidence in what was always thought of as great American leadership on the world stage.
Yeah, Jonathan Lemire, listening to Steve Ratner talking about tariffs, I'm reminded of Harry Truman in the 48 campaign jumping off the train. A man coming up to him and yelling in his face for 5 minutes about how much he couldn't stand him. The guy walked off, and Truman turned to his advisor and said, "We'll mark him as undecided." I think Ratner's undecided on these tariffs and the handling of it. I'm wondering, there is a question, and there has been the belief among a lot of people on Wall Street that these tariffs were always Donald Trump's opening bid. Last week, people said, "Well, I don't think about that anymore. This is far more than that." I am curious, though, and I keep talking about Japan, South Korea, some of these other countries that would send a really positive signal to the markets. Do you get any sense for your reporting inside the White House how aggressively the White House is working with some of our major non-European allies to strike deals?
Steve and his border collie opposed to the president's economic plan. To this point, they are trying to. The president, you heard him yesterday, sort of publicly trying to still project calm, like he did on Truth Social with "Be calm" in all caps, an exclamation point a few days ago. But behind the scenes, advisors are hoping. We had the Treasury Secretary meet with the trade delegation from Japan in the last 24 hours or so. There are other meetings lined up, but it's not clear exactly when those deals will get done. It's also not clear, even if, like, say, a solitary deal is struck, what that will mean. There seems to be, to Steve's point, such deep damage here that, yes, there'll probably be a flurry in the stock market if a deal is done, but the long-term confidence seems really shot. And Claire McCaskill, let's get you to weigh in on this. I mean, this is, yes, the market rallied a little bit the other day, lost half of those gains again yesterday, but we're still well down from where we were a week or so ago since Liberation Day. But it's not just about the stock market. It's about the fundamentals. We talked about the bond market earlier this week. Steve just brought in the crisis in confidence that we're seeing from our trading partners. Things are, to put it simply, to use a mess.
Yeah. And I think the point that Steve made about what damage Donald Trump has done that is not reversible by deals with individual countries. And that is that the rest of the world now is looking at the United States as bizarre, out of step, not a good partner, not someone you can rely on. The chaos caused by this incompetence is real, and it's not going to go away. And I would point out, and I welcome Steve to correct me if he thinks I'm wrong about this, But it seems to me that if Donald Trump would have spent half the time uniting those nations that believe in democracies and freedom of speech and don't have autocrats in charge of them, uniting them against China's trade policies, he could have done a better job of isolating China. Instead, I noticed yesterday that the EU dropped all tariffs against China's electric vehicles, against their EVs. So what's happening is he's driving countries into the ever-loving arms of China. Instead of isolating China against the rest of the world, he's now, frankly, united the world against the United States. And that will have an impact on tourism. It will have an impact on the selling of services in the United States, which hasn't been factored into these formulas at all, where we have a real trade imbalance in our favor. So this isn't going to get fixed by him claiming he's made great deals with all these countries when probably he won't be able to do that anyway.